Hello everyone and welcome to How to in Access 2013. My name is Steve Bishop, and in today's video we're going to be talking about SQL Server Migration Assistant for Access. Now this is a very handy tool that Microsoft released in order to help you with the migration of your data from other data sources, and one of those data sources could potentially be Access. So they released this version of SQL Server Migration Assistant specifically for Access to help you transfer your data and your tables from out of Access to SQL Server. So this is a very handy tool and really could replace the videos 4 through 7 of my Programming in Access 2013 advanced course. However, I do recommend that you go ahead and watch those videos because they're more of a layer by layer review of what type of steps need to be taken in order for you to migrate your data over. And some of those steps will be important to understand later on when you're working with other databases and other situations. But in the meantime, to just kind of go over how to do a migration of your database from out of Access to SQL Server for those tables in your data, I'm just going to go ahead and show you a demonstration in this video. We're going to go ahead and use the Northwind database, so I'm just going to go ahead and hop out of my little screen here, and let's open up Access 2013. And I'm just going to go up here to my search for templates and type in Northwind, because the Northwind is just a good overall database for testing and seeing what happens. So I'm just going to go ahead and click on the template here. Let's go ahead and name our database. I'm just going to go ahead and call it Northwind. Now you could of course use whatever database you're working on. Maybe you have your own Access database that needs this conversion. I'm just going to go ahead and use this as an example. So, all right. Let's enable the content, and there we go. There's our login screen. I'm just going to go ahead and open this up so you can see, navigate by object type, and there we see all of the tables that are in the Northwind database, including the MSys tables. All right, so what we're going to go ahead and do then is let's go over to the web and let's find out what the URL is here for our download. It is https://www.microsoft.com/en-us/details.aspx ? ID = 43690. Now, if you didn't get all of that, you can just go to either Bing or Google and type in Microsoft SQL Server Migration Assistant for Access, and you should be able to find a list of the different versions. So here I've got version 6.0, and as far as I know, this is the latest version. I really looked around and around to see if I could find anything else, but really this seems to be it. Maybe there's one out there. If you guys know of a newer one, please feel free to post a link to it in a comment below the video. But for right now, version 6.0 will work with the scenario that we're going to go through. You can see the file size is very small. It's only 7 megs. That's not 7 gigs. That is 7 megs. It's a very, very small file. The date published is a bit concerning. You can see if you look at my little clock down here on the bottom right, you can see today's date is the 9th of May, whereas the last date of publication for this assistant is 7/23 of 2014. So that's almost a full year ago. So it's a bit concerning because I'm not entirely sure what the next step is for Microsoft in the releasing of this tool. I don't know if they're abandoning it as a tool entirely, or if hopefully what my hope is that when Access 2016 and the next version of SQL Server come out, that they go ahead and release another migration assistant for that new SQL Server. So that's my hope. Everybody cross your fingers. But for right now, version 6.0 will do everything that you could possibly need it to. In fact, if you look here at this paragraph here underneath the details section, you'll see SSMA for Access version 6.0 is designed to support migration from Access 97 and higher to all editions of SQL Server 2005 and higher, all the way up to SQL Server 2014. And that includes Azure SQL. So you can do everything from Access 97 to Access 2013 and migrate that table data on any version of SQL Server 2005 and up, including Azure SQL. That is absolutely amazing. This tool will basically do the migration for any version of Access you've got to any version of SQL you've got, as long as it's 2005 or higher. And that is also including the Express editions of SQL Server. So it doesn't matter if you're doing, the BI version, the professional version, the standard edition, the Express edition, doesn't matter. It'll work for any one of those SQL servers. So this is a very, very handy tool to help you do the migration of any SQL data, of any Access database tables to SQL Server. It's absolutely amazing. So I'm just going to go and click on the download, and I'm very impatient about this sort of thing. So I'm going to click on the click here button or the click here link. Let's go ahead and save it. And you can see just like that, it's already downloaded. It's 7 megs, so quick. Let's go ahead and open it up. And it goes through the installation process. Needs to compute my space requirements because it's thinking of launching a space rocket, I guess. I don't know, space requirements. Okay. Next, let's just go ahead and click on next. Whoever reads these things, right? Next. Okay. Typical customer complete. I'm just going to go ahead and do the complete so I get everything, but you, of course, could do the typical, or you could do the, if you want to really make sure that you're getting exactly the right components for yours, you could do the custom. And in the time that it took me to say that, it's already done. There we go. Okay. That's how fast it takes to install this thing. It is wonderful. It's absolutely amazing. Let's go ahead and click on the Start button and go to All Programs. I'm actually running Windows 8 with a modified Start button here. I used one of those little special programs to give me a Windows 7 look. And you'll see that I have the Microsoft SQL Server Migration Assistant. And I have 2 versions of this here. And as you may have guessed, there we go. It's 32-bit version and 64-bit version. Now, the 64-bit version doesn't actually tell you it's 64-bit. It just doesn't tell you the bit version. That's 64-bit, just trust me. So, I highly recommend if you are running Access 2013 64-bit and you're running SQL Server 2014 or 2012 or 2008 in 64-bit mode, you should probably go ahead and use the Microsoft SQL Server Migration Assistant for 64-bit. Let's go ahead and do that. If you're running a 32-bit version of Access or SQL Server, then you're probably going to go ahead and need to use the 32-bit version of this application. And in fact, I think the 32-bit version will work if you're running 64 bits for Access and SQL, but I've never tested that, and I really don't see any reason why you'd want to. So anyway, yeah, go ahead and leave the wizard going. All right, so here we go. Here are our default name for my first migration project. SQL Migration 1. I'm fine with it being called that. But you know what? I'm just going to be Flibberflab. There we go. Our migration project name is called Flibberflab. All right, and we're just going to go ahead and use the default location to store this project. Migrate to, and you can see here are the different SQL versions that you can migrate to. We've got Azure SQL Server 2005 all the way up to 2014, which I'm running 2014. So I'm going to go ahead and select that and click Next. Now it needs me to add the Access database. And before I can add the database, I actually need to go ahead and close out of it here because I still had it open in the background. So let's go ahead and close that. And now we can go ahead and add the database. And I'm just going to navigate to that Northwind database file that we created. Click on Open. Now it's listed there. I could do multiple databases. That's pretty cool. Click on Next. And you can see down here it's loading the queries, and it'll load the tables to also out of my Access database. And it makes a list of them here in this little wizard. And right now, by default, it goes and checks the tables. So all of my tables are selected here. You could select the queries, and just to let you know, if I did select queries, what it would do is run every one of my queries in that Access database and then save the results as new tables on the SQL server. So that's kind of silly. I don't see any reason to do that, especially because the queries are going to exist still in the Access database, and they'll run just perfectly fine after this process is finished. There's really nothing you need to do to the queries in order to make them run. It's pretty seamless. So I'm just going to select the tables. And just to show you, I'm just going to go ahead and drill down here. You can see it's also picking up the indexes and the keys. And this is something that is absolutely wonderful about this utility, is it gets all of the indices and the keys, the primary keys. Fantastic. Trust me, this is a beautiful thing that I'm looking at right here, where it pulls those keys in for me. Okay, that is the bane of migration's existence, is trying to pull those primary keys over on those tables. It sucks when you don't have them pulled over and you got to go through every table and recreate those keys. It sucks. That's why there are whole videos in my Programming for Access 2013 Advanced course that go over how to do that, and it still sucks, even though I've got videos on how to do it. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. So we've got all the tables that we want selected. Let's go ahead and click on Next. And here we go. Now it needs me to say which SQL server I want to migrate to. Well, I've already gone through this wizard once before. So the server name is localhost. That is the actual, that's the server that is running my SQL Server 2014. I don't need to specify a port because the default's going to work fine here, but if you have some sort of firewall situation, you've got special forwarded ports or something through your firewall, then you may need to specify that. The database, okay, by default it said Northwind because when I ran it a few times, that's what it put in here. But in reality, when you first run this wizard, you're going to get just a blank here. If I look in my SQL Server on the Management Studio, you see that there are no databases right now for Northwind. If I did create a database, I could just go, new database, create a Northwind database as a blank slate for this thing, and then type it in here. But what's great about this wizard is that if it can't find the database that I selected here on here, when I go to actually run this, it'll prompt me to go ahead and create that database. So I'm just going to go ahead and type in Northwind because I want this wizard to go ahead and create that Northwind database. But if there was an already existing database on the server, you would just go ahead and type the name of that database right here. I'm going to go ahead and use Windows authentication to connect to the SQL Server. I'm going to leave it encrypted and trust the server certificate. Click Next, and there's my prompt that says the database Northwind can't be found. Do you want me to create it? I'm going to say absolutely because I didn't do it before and I was a total idiot the first time around. I don't know what was wrong with me. I just feel lazy. I want you to do everything for me because you're a wizard. That sort of thing. Okay, so it's loading the schemas. It's spinning here. Right now it's creating my database for me because, again, I was too lazy to do it myself. This is going to take a few seconds. I need to fill it with some time. I don't have anything really important to say here while the progress bar goes to 98% and stops for some reason, but it is still going, so that's a good thing. And we're waiting some more. Maybe I'll whistle a tune. Let's see, do I know any tunes? I don't think. Ah, there we go. Okay, so great. I thought this screen in this migration wizard was really, really important for you guys to see. Okay, it's another one of the beautiful things about this wizard that just makes life so easy and so nice. You can see it says, if you want to use your existing Access applications with SQL Server, you can link your original Access tables to the migrated SQL Server tables. Hallelujah! This wizard will actually go and set up the linked tables in your Access database for you to point to the SQL Server. All you have to do is check this little link tables checkbox, and voila, it will work flawlessly. So let's go ahead and click on the next, and now it's going to go through a conversion process. Let's talk a little bit about this. So the conversion process, it's looking at those tables that we selected, and it needs to assess, well, boy, that was really quick. It needs to make a quick little assessment to see, okay, your Access tables have these data types in it. SQL Server can host these kinds of data types. Are those data types compatible? So we've got, text in Access tables is and varchar in SQL Server. that sort of thing. So it has to run this quick little assessment. Okay, I've got this table over here that has these data types. I need to make a table over here in SQL Server to have these data types. And you can see that there were 6 errors in that process that we're going to have to go over here in just a little bit. It's prompting me with this nifty little wizard part here that's basically saying, hey, the tables that you've got over here on your Access database on the right, I couldn't find any table named that in the database you mentioned, which of course makes sense because we started out with no database at all. It's completely blank. So it shouldn't find any tables named any of these things. So this migration process is not just saying migrating new tables, new database tables, and new data over to the SQL Server database. It's also facilitating the option of adding data that exists in an Access database table to tables that already exist in SQL Server. So that's fantastic there too. You don't have to necessarily go through the process of, always doing this only when it's new. You can actually upgrade your data. You can, copy data from out of Access and upgrade it to tables that already exist in SQL Server. Now, I do give a word of caution with that. Just because it can do it doesn't mean you should do it. My recommendation to you is that if you do in fact have that scenario where you have a database that already has these tables existing in it, and you've got new data that you need to incorporate into those tables from some other Access database, I really actually recommend that you go ahead and create a brand new database with all of the table data from that Access database and port it over into that new database, and then run some queries, some insert queries to insert those rows or do an update to those to the data that in that already existing database. So you're going to compare the old database with the new database and kind of one at a time manage it yourself. Only because I have run into problems where data gets corrupted or lost during some sort of automated process. So it's really up to you. You can do it. You can use this tool to go ahead and update the information that already, update the tables that already exist in the database, or you can do, like I said, move all that over to its own brand new database and then kind of go table by table and make sure that you do it the right way. Okay, so anyway, let's move on from that. I'm going to go ahead and click OK. It's going to go ahead and start to load the converted objects to the target database. So it's going and shoving all of these new tables with all the data into it onto the SQL Server. And now so it did first it basically created the tables for me. Then it migrated the data over for those objects. And now you can see it's at the linking the converted tables stage of this. So this is where it's actually going into the Access database and creating those links for me. So let's see, we're on shippers here. We're almost done. Suppliers, I think this is the last table. There we go. The process of the conversion and migration is complete, but we do have some errors here, okay? And I'll just click on the report here just so you can see. It's pretty extensive. There's a lot of errors here. There's index, primary keys, blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of errors here, but the report doesn't really tell me as much as this little beauty right here tells me. If I look at this, I'm going to just unselect the warnings and the information. And you can see the errors. Attachment data type is not supported. Attachment data type is not supported. Complex long data type is not supported. So here we can actually see the actual errors that are occurring. And primarily it's saying the error is data type is not supported. What that means is that this attachment data type that was created in Access, there's no compatible data type in SQL Server. SQL doesn't know of any good data type that you can just easily move these attachments over to. And that's just, unfortunately, one of those things that Microsoft, I'm not entirely sure why, but they developed something in Access but didn't develop it in SQL, and so therefore we're just stuck with this incompatibility. And you have to manage that, okay? you could easily go back and look at the attachment data types that you have in all of your tables, and in your database, before you do the migration, say, okay, I can't do attachments anymore. I need to knock any reference to attachment out of this database entirely. I need to get it out of my queries, need to get it out of my code, need to get it out of my forms, etc. So that's something that you're going to have to do. It is a problem. It's something you are going to have to address. The 245 warnings, luckily for us, warnings are typically things that are just overlook that you can just overlook. In this particular case, column first name has a space in it. Okay, it has a name that might cause problems for access in the application if you don't, if it may cause problems in access. Well, we already know that. Okay, we already did a bunch of stuff in access to make this naming convention with a space in the name. We already do stuff in it. Namely, we put brackets around the name of the columns in order to manage this. So I think we're perfectly fine in all of these warnings. We got forward slashes and spaces. So we're going to go ahead and close that and close this. And if we expand out, I'm just going to take a look here at the Access Metadata Explorer here. And you'll see we have these little red X's, little circular red and white X's. And if we keep expanding this out, you can see it had a problem with the customers table. It had a problem with the employees table. It had a problem with the products table. It had a problem with the shippers table and the suppliers table. So there we go. We can actually see, okay, the 6 errors that we ran into were attachments, and I think one of them something to do with the complex text. So if I look at the customers table and I scroll through here, I'll see that there's that attachments data type is on this attachments column, and same for employees, I believe. Yep, there's attachments, and products has a problem with, yep, there's an attachment there, and shippers has an attachment, and suppliers has an attachment. So there we go. There's all of these things appear to be attachment issues. So you would have to do something in your Access database to work around this. Now, let me just show you here. Let me refresh the database list here so we can take a look at the Northwind database. It did actually create those rows for the attachments, but you'll see that it doesn't match up. SQL, the tool did its best to try to match it up, but it knows, hey, this isn't quite right. Boy, my computer's running a little slow here. There we go. Okay, so Northwind tables, customers was one of them. And if I go into the design view of customers and go down to that attachments, there we go. It converted that attachments to varchar 8000, which is clearly not right. But on the flip side, we've got our primary key already built into the table. Isn't that nice? It just does it. I believe it even seeds it. Let me just take a look. Identity specification and seeded. So everything we need all right there in one nice little tool to do the migration process for us. Isn't that amazing? Isn't that fantastic? Okay, so the last step is just to make sure everything works in the Access database. And I'm going to go ahead and open up Documents and go to my Northwind ACCDB file. Now just realize this is now basically our front end file because our back end is the SQL Server. So let's go ahead and double click on this. And hopefully everything just works. And sure enough, there we go. There's our dialog login. And I can click that. I can go view orders. Here's all my orders. The dates look right. Statuses look right. And you can see what happened was it created all of these linked tables named exactly what the tables were called before we did the migration. So it just linked them in with the same exact names of those tables. And that's why all of these queries and all these forms and everything is going to work perfectly. Okay, it's because it just renamed all those linked tables to what they were called before when they were local tables. But on top of that, it still went ahead and saved the tables locally. So all those local tables just got renamed SSMA $, and then whatever the name of the table was before it got converted, $local. So all of these things still exist. You can see there's the shippers table is going to match the shippers table. Okay, so everything is still here in case there was any sort of problem during the migration process. So everything works beautiful. We've got all the keys got moved over with the migration tool. We've got a few errors we need to work out here. I'll leave that up to you to try to figure out what you're going to need to do, because every situation is going to be specific to your issue. And if you do run into any problems, please feel free to leave a comment below in the comment section of this video. And as always, please feel free to like, favorite, and subscribe, and hope to see you guys in the next video.